We're going to kind of have a more serious topic tonight. With tomorrow being the anniversary of the greatest attack on our country since Pearl Harbor, I wanted to get out and I want to give my thoughts. I lived 9/11. I didn't study 9/11. And I'm going to take you through my experience. I'm already kind of emotional tonight, and this is gonna open up some wounds. So feel free to share your stories in the comments, ask questions. 9/11 2001 is a day which I will forget pieces of, but I will never forget. I was fifth or sixth grade. I can't tell you which one. It really is irrelevant. Um, when I had a classmate run in and grab me out of my classroom, I'm pretty sure I was in math, and saying, "You need to come see this." And we ran down to another teacher's classroom. He did more of the special needs learning and stuff. And on the TV was an image of New York, Tower One of the Twin Towers, burning. I'm in middle school, elementary school, depending on where you are, and for a child like me to see that, we're dumbfounded. We watched the second plane hit the second tower live on television. Um, so I'm trying to get myself. We watched people jump from buildings who had lost hope. We watched people get crushed. We saw New York Fire and New York Police rush in to try to save as many lives as they could, not knowing what was going on. And we watched them get buried. Um, we watched when it cut over to the Pentagon, and the Pentagon was smoking. And me and one of my best friends, who were both utterly obsessed with the U.S. military at the time, knew honestly what this meant. As I think, gosh, I want to say sixth graders. Fifth, sixth graders, we knew what this meant. We knew that the United States had been attacked. We knew that there was going to be a war coming, and we had a good feeling that we were going to have the opportunity to participate in said war. But what we didn't know at the time, what was really going on, other than someone hurt us. I mean, I'm sitting out here in the middle of BFE, Iowa. The president was evacuated to a shelter less than 4 hours away from where I'm sitting right now. For those of you who did not know, he was evacuated to a shelter over by Omaha. And at the time where I was sitting, he was about 5 hours. He was evacuated about 5 hours away, because I didn't grow up where I live now. I grew up about 3 hours away. But you got these little honky small town kids from little nowhere. If I said my hometown's name, you wouldn't even know where it was without a map, unless you're from the area. If I told you where my school was, you would have even less of a clue where that is. They don't even have school there anymore. But so you got these sixth graders. All of a sudden, we're running out of nowhere early out scheduling, and the majority of the school has no idea what's going on. There's a few of us. So the game plan is, sorry, pups over here. The game plan is they're gonna feed us and get us on buses to go home. It wasn't even a traditional early out. It was, we're going to get these kids fed and we're going to get them out of here. We're going to get them home to their families because they need to be with their families because of what went on. We were the second lunch that day, and principal came in during lunch and said, "Everyone, I need your attention, please. We, the United States, has been attacked by terrorists. The Twin Towers have fallen. The Pentagon is in flames. They don't know how many have been lost, but we're sending you home to mom and your parents because you need to be with them right now, and we don't know if we're having school tomorrow." And that's just at the small town level. I've done research. I've watched the shows. I know they shut down all air traffic control. I know they started putting armed planes in the air, and I can verify that for a fact because I know one of the guys. I work with one of the guys who armed the planes in Des Moines. Hearing his 9/11 story is absolutely amazing, and I'm going to share parts of it with you. But as Pup tries to lighten the mood over here. We got sent home. School canceled for the following day. For the following 2 days, all I watched for the rest of the week was the bombings. My thought was, I had a cousin who was a Marine. My thought is, well, he's going to war. And yeah, my thoughts were with those people that I knew that were about to get sent off to a faraway land to take revenge on whomever did this to us. And, as a fifth, sixth grader, my thoughts didn't think about the people on Flight 93 who had taken over the plane, taken back the plane, and crashed in Pennsylvania. My thoughts as a kid were never with the people that were in the planes that hit the Twin Towers and hit the Pentagon. But I tell you what, now as a 30-year-old, I cry every time I see 9/11 footage. I cry every time I talk about it. And I almost feel pity on myself for not feeling what I do now when I did back then, but I was just a kid. I mean, now I understand in detail what happened and the gravity of it. People all over the planet were doing different things at different times for our national defense. NORAD was shutting down all air traffic for the United States. They were scrambling fighters. There were fighters in the air who had ram orders if their verbals were not obeyed because they didn't have weapons, because we didn't have a patrolling. We had jets in the air patrolling, but they weren't armed. That, I believe, has since changed, as all of our planes are now armed while they're doing the patrols, even over domestic. I had a now coworker. He was getting off night shift at the time. He worked over at the Air Force Base at near the Des Moines Airport, and his job was putting the munitions on planes. So that's, I don't know what that actual designation is, but that was his job. And he was about ready to come off when the first plane hit. And his CEO comes in and says, "Boys, get your butts back out there. We're going to start doing full combat sorties." Now, this guy has been overseas. He's done combat loads, and actually, he's loaded planes that came back with nothing on them. So this guy, he's got experience in this, and he's back home, Des Moines, Iowa, and his CEO is telling him that they're going to load full combat loads and get ready for a long night. And they just got off shift. They were just getting off shift, so they turned around and no phone calls out. They got phone calls off later after they got the first planes outfitted, and he loaded combat planes, done refueling and everything for the rest of the. I think he said for 2 or 3 days. He didn't leave. They slept. They slept on the on the tarmac because that was the gravity of the situation. One thing I remember of him is they were laying there on one of the trucks at night between runs, and he looked at one of his subordinates. So he tells me, and he says, "Look up at that sky. Do you see anything in it?" And you look up, and my dad did this kind of the same with me. I remember dad doing this with me. You looked up at the sky. Normally, you would see planes littering it. The only planes you saw that night were military. And my dad explained that to me. He goes, if you see a plane up there, it's got bombs and it's got missiles on it, and it's here to protect us. But there's no planes up there. And I can tell you, when I looked at that sky, I didn't see any planes. And this coworker looked at his coworkers, and he said, "Look up at that sky. You'll never see it this clear again." For the same reasons. Now, this is my story. This hurts me. I've got a 12-year-old who is learning about this in books. He's asked about my experience, and I cry every time I I talk about it. I try to get him movies that came out in tribute to it. Disney's got one that we watched a few weeks ago. And I said, we're going to watch this now because I don't think I have you during 9/11, and it might help you understand it a little bit better. Um, we've watched some, I've watched Twin Towers with him and Flight 93, and he gets it. I don't think he really understands, but he gets it. And the one thing I really try to stress is watching those first responders was one of the main reasons why I wanted to get in law enforcement. I wanted to be those officers running into that building assisting fire to get people out. Those men and women that day, fire, law enforcement, EMS, and civilian, they were all heroes. Even if they were there to punch numbers on the 100 and some floor of that tower, they died as heroes. They meant something to someone, and they should be remembered as such. I don't care if one was the most twisted banker in the world. He meant something to someone. He was someone's brother, someone's son, someone's father. They all died as heroes that day, and they all died not carelessly. It was very deliberate. It was not careless. They all died in a deliberate attack to tear our country apart, and they failed. Now, tomorrow on the anniversary, 19 years ago, tomorrow, we're on another crossroad, and we're more divided now, almost 20 years later, than we were on September 12th. September 12th, every neighbor was out there hugging each other. There was American flags everywhere. And if I got one wish, I wish this country was today how it was on September 12th without having to have another night on September 11th. You want to know the country I want to live in? I want to live in the country of September 12th, 2001. Before we knew who the enemy was, before we knew who to hate, we all knew that we were grieving, and we all knew that we were hurt, and we all knew that we needed each other. That's the country I want to live in. is September 12th without September 11th. And I know some of you guys are in my book where you don't know how to explain to your kids, your grandkids, what happened that day. And if sharing my story to them helps them realize what it was like for someone their age, do it. Share it. But it hurts to this day. And I don't know many people who actually lived through that, whether they be from Iowa, California, New York, Maine, wherever. I don't know many people who remember 9/11 2001 that don't feel something on that day. And I just on tomorrow morning, take a moment to remember and reflect for those heroes that died in New York, for those dear heroes that died in the Pentagon, and for those heroes that died in the Pennsylvania field, who figured out what was going on and prevented the next target from being hit. Take a moment and remember them. Light a candle in their memory. But above all, never forget. This is Spider Jetting, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you on the next one.